checking. That seems to be the right mic. I think we're good. Okay. Okay, so we're talking about state and local governments, right? We're going to be talking about them chapter 1 through chapter 8. We'll get to not-for-profits a little bit later, and we sort of introduced that a little bit last time. Okay, so we said that any state or local government obviously being a state, local government being what? A county is a local government. A city is a local government. Okay, so is the city of San Jose a local government? Yes, it is. Is the county of Santa Clara a local government? Is Hayward a local government? City of Hayward? Yes, it is, right? Regardless of size, you're considered a state or local government. You are to prepare this set of financial information. It doesn't matter, right? Every entity across the country will prepare this information. Yes, sir.
Would say the Canadian province of Alberta count as a government-wide government as a government accounting thing?
Alberta is, I guess it's a city or something, or it's a province, and so it is a government, but this is U.S. state and local governments. I have no idea what they require in other countries. We're talking about the U.S. requirements here. Okay, so even though they would obviously be a government entity in their respective country, we're talking about U.S. Okay. Okay, good. So we have what? We have this set of information that would be provided. First thing that you would see, and that's why I put a 1 here, is a management discussion and analysis, right? Second thing you'd see are the basic financial statements. Now, when we talk about the basic financial statements, we talk about government-wide statements. We talk about fund financial statements. Now, what happens? The fund financial statements are disaggregated sets of information. It is providing what? It is providing, and I mentioned this last time, additional detail. That says additional, believe it or not. Okay, and if you combine my bad spelling, my bad handwriting with the hard-to-read graphics of a tablet, you are best off listening to the words I'm saying than trying to read them off the screen, and I'll always repeat them, additional detail, additional detail, additional detail, and sometimes I'll be saying, that says additional detail, and I'll see people going, what does that say? And meanwhile, I'm standing here going, additional detail, and I'm saying it 15 times, okay? So you're best off, and if you don't know something that I wrote that you want to make a note of, just ask me, okay? It's the best thing. Okay, so we have what? We have additional detail that is provided in these fund statements. Now, what do? We take these fund statements and we consolidate them into a set of government-wide statements. Just like you could have what? You could have, that says consolidate, you could have company A and company B under common ownership. You learn in advanced accounting, whatever, that you do what? You consolidate those into a company-wide set of statements. Now, unlike you would have in commercial, where you don't really see all the detail of company A and company B, right? That's almost part of what they want to do. They don't want you to look at all the detail. They want you to look at the consolidated, although they do pick out pieces of the detail and disclose that to you in the consolidated statements. For the most part, you're focusing just on the consolidation, right? In government accounting, we are literally going to give you all the detail of the disaggregated funds that constitute this government-wide set of statements. So we're going to take 11 different funds, and we're going to take some of those and consolidate them up into a government-wide set of statements. So we've got two levels of reporting, right? And then, of course, like any set of financial statements, the notes are considered what? An integral part of the financial statements. Okay, and I just get done saying I will repeat the words that I write 3 times: consolidated, 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 and then I say, if you have a question, ask me, and immediately somebody turns and asks their neighbor, what did he just put? So is there a question? Okay, I ask that you ask me because your neighbor may be having as much trouble following me as you are. And it's sort of like on the airline when they say, before you assist anybody else with their mask, make sure your own mask is on, kind of thing. Okay, so I don't want a whole airplane full of people that can't breathe understand what I'm saying. So ask me, I'll help you to understand what I put on, okay? What I put up here. Okay, so notes are what? Considered an integral part of any set of financial statements. So the government-wide, the fund financial statements, because of additional detail, plus the notes constitute what? As I've written in here, the basic financial statements. Okay, then the third thing you see, this bottom box that I've numbered 3, are the required supplemental information other than the MD&A. Now, if this was a logic class, that would be, something that we would automatically say. So the logic is what? That MD&A must be required supplemental information, right? So the what? Required supplemental information other than the MD&A is required supplemental information, obviously, and what? The MD&A is required supplemental information. The only difference is where did they appear in this financial reporting package? And what? The RSI, which is the MD&A, appears what? First. Required supplemental information other than MD&A is third. It comes what? After the basic financial statements. Now, why are they arranging the reporting package this way? Well, the MD&A we're going to see is a narrative document. It's words. It describes what you're seeing as what? Numbers in the financial statements. For example, let's say this government had originally planned to spend $1 million on road improvement. But then these days, with all the stuff you hear about, shootings and all that stuff, unfortunately, they say, hey, look, we're going to have to reprogram some of that money off of road improvement into public safety. So they take $200,000 of that $1 million and they now decide they're going to use that for public safety. Okay? What'll happen? In the MD&A, you'll see that explanation. In the light of recent developments, we were having to reprogram some of our financial resources away from road improvement to public safety, and we think this trend will continue over the next 5 years. I don't know. Whatever they would put in an MD&A, very similar to what a corporation would be putting, right? So when we say required supplemental information, what does required mean? Have to provide it. Supplemental means what? Additional. When somebody says, if you really want to build up your knee muscle, you need to take a supplement, right? You need to add to what you're already doing, right? So this required information is adding on to what? The only other thing that's up here, which is the basic financial statements. So the nature of this information is what? Financial, isn't it? We're not saying, San Jose is such a beautiful city, especially in the twilight. That's not what they're saying in this MD&A. It's financial type discussions, right? This is why we had to spend, only whatever, $800,000 on road improvement instead of $1 million because we reprogrammed some money to public safety, whatever, right? Okay. Now, we also have this required supplemental information other than MD&A. Down here, we may give you a more detailed numeric breakout as to what happened. So we'd have what? We'd in one column show you the budget, and the other column show you the actual, so you could see what the actual differences in those numbers and maybe what our amendments were as we went along. But we're going to show you much more what? Number type discussion as opposed to what? As opposed to words explaining why we've had these differences. Okay? This is the required reporting package. So the first thing you see is what? MD&A. Do all governments have to provide this? All state and local governments have to provide this? Yes, they do. First thing you see is the MD&A. Next thing you see is what? Basic financial statements. Good, which constitute the government-wide statements, the fund financial statements, and the notes there too, right? And then the third thing you see is required supplemental information other than the MD&A, which would be these tables comparing budget to actual, etc. And there's a variety of things. I'm going to hold you accountable to knowing what a few of the required supplemental information items are other than MD&A. I'm not going to make you, know every single one of them. Okay? Question? Okay, good. So I think we kind of left off there last time. But let's take a look quickly at this slide. I think we had actually gone through this slide. But when we look at the government-wide statements, there are two statements. One is showing the financial condition of this government, which is a balance sheet. That's what the balance sheet does, right? The other shows the results of operations, which is going to essentially be an income statement. Good. Even though we don't call it balance sheet, we don't call it income statement, they are like those, right? Okay, financial condition, results of operations. Now, when we prepare statements at the government-wide level, we will use full accrual accounting, economic resources, measurement focus. What's full accrual accounting? Huh? Recognize what? Transactions in the period in which they occur, not in the period in which cash comes in or goes out, whatever, right? And I gave you the little story of when you were playing in the park with your mom, right? And she said, hey, you always have to remember when you purchase an asset, you have to do what? That has future economic benefit. You would debit an asset account like equipment. You would credit your cash, whatever, for $1,000. Then you depreciate that equipment, etc., right? So when we're at the government-wide level, we're going to be using the same form of accounting, the same type of accounting that we've been drilling into your head ever since you decided to be an accountant, which is full accrual, right? Economic resources measurement focus, because what? Is equipment an economic resource? So we're keeping track of that economic resource. Therefore, we call that the economic resources measurement focus. And our focus is on operational accountability. How efficient, how effective are we in providing government programs, government services, etc.? Okay, so three key phrases up here. What type of accounting? Full accrual. Good. What? What kind of measurement focus? Economic resources, measurement focus. What type of accountability? Operational accountability. Good, guys. Those are three key terms that I've highlighted on this slide that you need to know are associated with the government-wide statements. Question?
So it's operational accountability, economic resources, and accrual basis.
Accrual basis, yes, accrual basis, economic resources, measurement focus, and operational accountability. Is that your question?
Basically, the terms you said we had to highlight were operational accountability, economic resources, and accrual basis.
Correct. Yeah. Those are the three things that we're doing at the government-wide level. We're using accrual basis of accounting, we're using the economic resources, measurement focus, and we're using operational accountability. That's what's happening at the government-wide level. Okay? All right, good. Now you come over and we talk about our funds. I think this is where I stopped last time because my slide was messed up. Okay? So what happens? When we talk about the funds, there are three categories of funds. Three categories of funds. We have governmental funds, we have proprietary funds, and we have fiduciary funds. Three categories of funds. Governmental funds, fiduciary funds, and we have proprietary funds. There are 11 funds that fall into one of these three categories. So there are 5 governmental funds. The 5 governmental funds are the general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, capital project fund, and the permanent fund. 5 governmental funds. General fund, debt service fund, capital project fund, permanent fund. Did I say debt service? 5 funds? Okay? Now, when we are at the proprietary fund level, there are two funds, an internal service fund and an enterprise fund. And then when we get to the fiduciary fund level, there are four funds. There is the custodial fund, the private purpose trust fund, the pension trust fund, and the investment trust fund. Four fiduciary funds. 5 plus 2 is 7 plus 4 is what? 11. 11 funds, three categories. We take those 11 funds, or we take some of those 11, not all of them. We take some of those 11 funds, and we consolidate them, and we report them where? Government-wide. Right? Okay. Okay, good. So you can see the respective chapters, but let's kind of visualize it this way. It's probably a little easier. Okay. So what happens? We have our governmental funds. How many categories? I'm going to move to highlighter for this. We have our governmental funds. We have what? 5 of those. We have what? Proprietary funds. 2 of those. And then we have these fiduciary funds. Is that the 3 categories? Okay. Now, these are our fund level. Okay. And what do? We basically take our governmental funds plus our internal service fund, and we consolidate that at the government-wide level under a column that is headed governmental activities. The government-wide statements are a consolidation of the fund statements, aren't they? So I'm showing you that we will consolidate these governmental funds plus the what? Plus the internal service fund, which is a proprietary fund, and put it under governmental activities. Then we will summarize, or we will consolidate, and a government doesn't just have to have one enterprise fund. They could have several. So we'll take all of our enterprise funds and we will consolidate them under a column called business type activity. Beautiful, almost like I did that on purpose. We will consolidate them under a column called business type activity. So we take our enterprise funds, however many we have, could have 1, 2, 3, whatever, could be 10. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll consolidate them under the enterprise fund category. Now, what happens with our fiduciary funds? Fiduciary funds are not consolidated at the government-wide level. We do not consolidate the fiduciary funds at the government-wide level. Okay, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. But right now, just understand that we take all of our governmental funds plus our internal service fund, we consolidate them and report them under what? Governmental activities. We take our enterprise funds, however many we have, and we consolidate them under what? Business type activity at the government-wide level. How about our fiduciary funds? No, we do not provide them. Now notice, just as we saw on the previous slide, I've listed the names of the various funds that fall under these 3 categories. So we've got what? For our governmental funds, we've got general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, capital project fund, permanent fund. For our proprietary funds, we have what? We have the internal service fund, we have the enterprise fund. When we're talking about our fiduciary funds, we've got what? Custodial fund, we've got our investment trust fund, our private purpose trust fund, and our pension trust funds, right? Yes, and how do you know that I want you to memorize that? Because I gave you a mnemonic. Okay, so I gave you the mnemonic here, what? Grasp, see, kip. grasp, see, kip. Don't worry about the po part, whatever. That's just trying to give additional detail that I don't care about. I simply want you to know that what that last P stands for pension funds. Okay, don't worry about the O and the E. Okay, so just remember grasp, see, kip, grasp, see, kip. Okay. By the way, quick update. I'm still working on getting Becker for this class, but I think it's going to work, where they're just going to give us a link. You'll go into the link if you want to. You'll register, and you'll get the financial section of the CPA review course for free if you want to do that. Okay, and then you'll probably get emails for the rest of your life saying, hey, do you want to buy the rest of it? But at least you get those 3 parts for free. I mean, that one part for free. Okay, but I'm still working on that. Okay, but anyway, we're sitting here, and we have what? We have our custodial fund investment private purpose pension, right? Okay, so you just have to remember that mnemonic to remember the funds, and you have to know what categories they fall in. So I could say to you, which of the following is a governmental fund? And you would have remembered GRASP, so you would know that the answer is what? A, enterprise fund? No. B, pension fund? C, internal service fund? No, even though it's under the governmental activities column at the government-wide level, it is a what? Proprietary fund, right? D, general fund. Okay, good. There will be questions just that easy on your exam. Okay? Okay, now, I'm going to show you some slides coming up here in which we're going to be showing you this information. But let's just take a look at it. Did I put a star on this slide? Because somebody said the other day to me a couple semesters ago, someone said, I just don't know what's important in your class when you're doing your lectures. Other teachers make sure they know that we know what's important. Okay? And I'm like, dude, I gave you a frickin' mnemonic. I mean, what else do you want? That I mean business about this, okay? So, but some other important things that are sitting on this slide, okay, which is what? No, I better not. Let's do orange. Okay, let's try it. Let's see what orange does for us. Right here. Yeah, not too bad. Okay. When we are dealing with our governmental funds, we will have what? Well, let's just review. When we're dealing with our government-wide statements, it is operational accountability. It is what? Full accrual accounting and the economic resources measurement focus like we saw in that previous slide. Okay? When we are dealing with our governmental funds, we use something called modified accrual accounting and the current financial resources measurement focus. We use something called modified accrual accounting and the current financial resources measurement focus. So what happens here? Go back to when you were playing in the park with your mom, okay? And promised her you'd always use full accrual accounting, okay? Well, today's the day that I'm going to corrupt what you promised your mom. I'm here to tell you that you don't always have to use full accrual accounting. You can use modified accrual accounting if we're talking about our fund financial statements. So what happens? Government buys a steamroller. Government buys a steamroller. What's a steamroller?
A steamroller is an old construction vehicle that was used to flatten roads before regular rollers came out. They were powered by steam and coal.
Oh, okay. Well, they still call them a steamroller for some reason. Yeah, they probably run by gas now. But the thing is, it's got a big old what? It's got a big old round wheel on the front of it that's used to do what? Flatten road beds. Okay? Guys, pay attention. What is going on back there? What's all this lack of attention to what's going on up here? Is there a question back there? Okay, good. So what happens? We sit here and we use this tractor with a big wheel, big roller on the front of it, like a big giant rolling pin that sits there and flattens the roadbed, right? Okay. Can you use that for road improvement? Can you use that for road improvement? So if you use it in your road improvement fund, okay, which is basically a special revenue fund, we would go ahead and we would debit expenditure for $1,000 and credit cash for the 1,000. We just bought a piece of equipment out of one of our governmental funds. Does this make your mom upset with you? Does this make your mom upset at you? Did you follow the accrual accounting rule you told her you would always follow? You did not. You simply did what? Debited expenditure and credited cash when you spent that money on the steamroller. Why are we able to do that? Because when we're at the fund level, remember, we're trying to show that we have what? Met our compliance with our laws, that we have what? Been in compliance with our budgetary constraints, and we have achieved our accountability objective here now because we're showing we spent $1,000 on what? On road improvement. That's what we were supposed to spend our money on. And so we don't worry about what? Trying to record equipment, trying to depreciate that equipment. All that goes away when you're at the fund level where you're just trying to show that you have met your fiscal accountability objective. So I'm adding the accountability objective. I'm going to write it in here, which is what? Fiscal accountability objective. And I'm just going to write that here. Fiscal. I'll write that in red, though. Fiscal accountability objective. That says fiscal. I'm going to rewrite that. I'm not happy with the way that looks. Fiscal accountability objective.
That's for both, right? For both modified accrual and current financial resources?
That's for our governmental funds. Our governmental funds use a fiscal, guys, I'm not going to say it again. I don't want side conversations in which people start trying to catch each other up. If you got a question, direct it up here. I cannot have a classroom full of people teaching each other or interpreting what I said. If you've got a question, put it up here, because I don't know that the person that you're talking to isn't going, man, your mouthwash ain't making it, okay? I wish you'd shut up so that I could listen to what the dude's saying here, okay? So there's a question directed up here, and I will answer your question as soon as I finish answering this gentleman's question, which is that we have modified accrual, current financial resources. Modified accrual is the basis of accounting. Current financial resources is the measurement focus. And just like what? Economic resource was the measurement focus. And the accountability is fiscal accountability. Okay, so when we're dealing with the governmental funds, it is what? Modified accrual. It is current financial resources measurement focus. And it is what? Fiscal accountability. Okay, now notice we're calling it current financial resources measurement focus because what? Look what we do when we buy a long-term item. We treat it as an expenditure, don't we? So we're not keeping track of economic resources. We're what? Running them through our operating statement as an expense, as an expenditure, aren't we? And we're able to do that because all we want to do is show that we spent the money for the intended purpose. That's it. Question?
I was only asking if there was a Microsoft pen I could use.
Oh, do you have a Microsoft pen you can use? I don't. I used to have an extra one, but I don't anymore. So, anybody got a Microsoft pen on them? No. Okay. What I'll do. Oh, well, they're already kind of marked up a little bit. Some of these I've saved these. I'll try to post the markup. Okay. Yeah. Okay, but that's fine. Just direct those questions up here, guys, because I just don't want to lose somebody who's kind of hanging in there, and then they got to stop to say, oh, well, what he's saying is, and then all of a sudden, I'm on to like 3 different things, and then the person's like, no, what did he just say? And pretty soon, what did he say? And pretty soon, what did he say? What did he say? And pretty soon, I got a whole classroom of people going, what did he say? Okay. So I need you to stay with me, okay? If you have a question, put it up here so I can stop, answer your question, then we can all move on together, okay? Okay, good. All right, now, when we are dealing with our proprietary funds, notice we go back to what? Full accrual accounting, economic resources measurement focus. When we deal with our fiduciary funds, notice we go back to what? Full accrual accounting, economic resources measurement focus. So the only time that you're going to have to understand something about modified accrual, current financial resources measurement focus, this fiscal accountability, is when we're dealing with what? The governmental funds, right? The governmental funds is the only time you have to do that. Now, this class is going to be largely about explaining to you about what some of the key differences are between modified and what? Full accrual accounting. You have already learned one of the big ones, which is what? If we acquire something like a long-term fixed asset or we have long-term debt, we do not report those. We treat them as expenditures. We treat them as kind of like a revenue if we issue long-term debt. Okay? Question. Now, you come over, and I'm showing you this government-wide statement, which is the statement of net position. The statement of net position is LIKE BS. What's BS? Good. Okay. The what? The statement of financial position is like the balance sheet for this government. Okay. Now, notice we have two columns. We have the governmental activities and we have the business type activities. Okay. Notice we have what? Both current and non-current assets and liabilities because we are on full accrual accounting when we're at the government-wide level, aren't we? Okay. Now, what do? We take our general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, capital project fund, permanent fund, the GRASP funds, and we take them what? All of our governmental funds, we dump them into the governmental activities column, don't we? We also pick up the internal service fund, which is a proprietary fund at the fund level, but we do what? Include it in the governmental activities column. Then we take our enterprise funds, no matter how many we had, 2, 3, whatever, we consolidate those and report them under what? Business type activities. That's why I have the E there. Where's Kip? Hey, Kip, where you at, Kip? Where's Kip? Kip is not reported at the government-wide level, right? Okay. Now, let's focus on this business type activity column. And you can see we've got our total assets, we've got our liabilities, both current and non-current. Liabilities, assets equal liabilities plus what? Plus your stockholders' equity is your favorite song, isn't it? Isn't that what you sing to yourself every night before you go to bed? Assets. You say at night, please, God, may assets always equal liabilities plus stockholders' equity so I can sleep tonight, right? Please wake me if they don't. And I teach this class, not this class, I teach accounting at Stanford, and they're entrepreneurs, so they're supposed to think outside the box. And so I tell them assets equal liabilities plus stockholders' equity, and they start going, well, wait a minute. Okay, there is no wait a minute, okay? Assets equal liabilities plus stockholders' equity. Okay, all right, so what happens? We sit here, we know that. Now, do governments sell stock? They do? That's what Trump wanted to do. He wanted to buy Iceland, right? Okay, so he wanted to, I'll give you, since I don't like, I'll give you California for Iceland. Okay, so what happens? We don't have those sort of things. So governments don't sell stock. They sell bonds, but that's debt that has to be paid back. But you don't sell stock and you take an ownership of the government, right? Okay, so governments don't sell stock. So there's no stock in the government stockholders' equity. If there's no stock, can there be additional paid-in capital in excess of par? No, there's no APIC. So what are we left with for our stockholders' equity? We're left with nothing but the retained earnings part of stockholders' equity, right? Okay? But we don't call it retained earnings. We call it net position. That says net position. We call it net position. We call it net position. There you can maybe read it a little easier. We call it net position. So what happens? Assets, then when we're talking about our government-wide statements, assets equal liabilities plus what? Plus net position, and net position is like retained earnings. With me so far? Assets equal liabilities plus net position. Net position is like what? Retained earnings. There is no stock, there is no additional paid in capital. Okay? So, our assets were how much? Our assets were 1,800,000, where'd it go? For our governmental, for our business type activities, excuse me, our what? Our assets were, where the hell did it go? What? 5,362,500. Then we had our liabilities, and then we brought in our net position. Why is this number not tying? What the hell am I doing here? Oh, here it is. What am I doing? Sorry, for business type activities, it's what's going on? For business type activities, it is what? 5,362,500. What is happening here? Oh, this can't be right. I've only taught this class 5,000 times. Why is this not working? Total assets. Oh, yeah, okay, equal what? Equal our liabilities plus our net position, and they don't give you the total here, which is what? 5 million. What on earth?
No, that is right. If you did the math, this is right.
Okay. It's just that I guess what's bothering me is they don't report it that way. They show net position as what? As the difference, right? They don't total it up. They show it as the difference. Okay, so if you take the liabilities of 3,522,500, 3 million, what is the number, guys? 500 and plus what? Plus the net position of 1,835,000. Good. That will equal up to the total assets, which we saw up there, which is 5,362,500. 5,362,500. Try it sometime. Try talking, writing, teaching, and chewing gum at the same time. Try it sometime. Okay. So 5,362,500 is what? Is the total of the assets, and it's the total of our liabilities plus our net position. Okay. And that's the total. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down, and I'm going to jump down to our proprietary funds. So now I'm at what? Now I'm at the fund level, right? This is a fund. I'm at the fund level. I'm looking at my proprietary fund statements. We have our proprietary fund statements. We have our governmental fund statements. We have our fiduciary funds, right? I'm just looking at the proprietary funds, which is our internal service fund and our enterprise funds, right? And we're going to take our enterprise funds and we're going to consolidate them under business type activities. So I should be able to do what? Add these two. This government had two enterprise funds. Add these two together and tie them up to that net position number that I saw earlier, right? That 1,835,000. So when I add those two together, water and sewer and parking facilities, I don't know, that sounds messy if you mix that all together. Water and sewer and parking, I think you have a horrible mess, okay? But let's go ahead and add them together. And you end up with what? These totals over here. And when you come down to the total net position is what? 1,835,000? Is that the same number? Is that the same number? So we didn't lie when we said we'll do what? We'll take our enterprise funds, we'll roll them together, and we'll report them in the business type activity column at the government-wide level. Isn't that what we did? We took our two enterprise funds, our what? Our water and sewer, our parking facility, we added them together. That net position was $1,835,000, and that ties to what we reported as our net position under our business type activity column at the government-wide level, right? Question. Now, I can't do the same thing with the governmental activity column. And I can't do the same thing with the governmental activity column with you quite yet because your head would explode. Because it would require that you understand all the differences between what? Modified accrual and full accrual accounting, because we're going to have to adjust our modified accrual governmental fund financial statements to what? Full accrual governmental fund statements, government-wide statements. And that means you have to understand key differences between modified accrual and full accrual. And if I try to teach you all that right now, well, the class would be over. Okay, that's why we need 15 weeks is for you to fully understand all those. Okay, so what happens? I am not going to make you take fund financial statements and consolidate them into government-wide. I will not make you do that. I will not make you take fund financial statements and consolidate them into government-wide. That's too much for this class, okay? But I will expect you to understand a report that constitutes this little arrow. We are literally going to have a statement as part of our financial reporting that constitutes that arrow, that shows how we go back and forth between the fund statements and the government-wide statements. Okay? So what we will do is we will report net position. Net position is like the retained earnings at the government-wide level, isn't it? Okay? And when we bought this equipment, if we were to prepare our statement of net position at the government-wide level, when we bought that equipment, because we would have used full accrual accounting, we'd show equipment of 1,000. We'd show net position of 1,000, wouldn't we? Let's say before we bought the equipment, we had what? We had cash, didn't we? Didn't we have cash before we bought the equipment? Of 1,000? Then we did what? Then we spent the cash and we ended up with what? Good. Equipment of 1,000? There's my government-wide statement of net position. There's my balance sheet, right? Okay. Now at the fund level, I had what? I had cash of 1,000. I had, and we don't call it net position when we're dealing with the governmental funds. We call our like retained earnings, we call it fund balance, but it's like retained earnings when we're dealing at the fund level, say our general fund, whatever. Okay, so we'd have cash of 1,000, we have fund balance of 1,000. We spent the cash, didn't we? We spent the cash? So the cash is now zero, and what happens? When you have an expenditure and you say, assume we had no revenue, you have a loss of 1,000, don't you? If you have a loss of 1,000, you close that loss to retained earnings. If your retained earnings was 1,000, your retained earnings becomes zero, doesn't it? So fund balance would now be zero, right? Yes, sir. No, that means it's the second thing you see. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about right now. And that if you look at the government-wide balance sheet, we're showing equipment, we're showing net position of 1,000, right? If you were to look at the governmental fund balance sheet, the cash is now spent, so cash is zero. We don't have equipment because we didn't record equipment, we treat it as an expenditure, right? So we don't have equipment. Fund balance goes from 1,000 to 0 because fund balance is like retained earnings, isn't it? Huh?
I'm still processing.
Okay. Do you understand the net position is like retained earnings?
Yes.
Okay, well, fund balance is like retained earnings. And when I'm sitting here at the fund level, when I started out with $1,000 in my fund balance is like retained earnings, so it would have had a credit balance of 1,000. I had cash of 1,000. I spent the cash. I debited expenditure, didn't I? At the end of the year, you have to make a closing entry, which is to debit fund balance for 1,000 and credit expenditure for 1,000 because you have to close your expenses, don't you? You have to close your expenses. When I debit fund balance, does fund balance become 0? When I debit fund balance, does fund balance become 0? Okay, so cash is 0, fund balance is 0, the balance sheet balances, doesn't it? Right? Okay. Now, if someone picks up the financial statements after all this has happened, they're looking and they're saying, I don't get it, government. I mean, how come your government-wide statements show a thing that's supposed to be like retained earnings net position of 1,000, but when I look at the thing that's supposed to be like retained earnings at your governmental fund level, I see a 0. There's a difference, isn't there? And there's a difference that has been generated by the fact that we're using modified accrual at the fund level. We're using full accrual at the government-wide level, right? So the reason I have this slide up is this double arrow pointing back and forth is telling you, you must prepare a reconciliation. And the reconciliation will reconcile fund balance to net position. Okay, so what's my fund balance? Fund balance is 0. What's my net position? Net position is 1,000. And then they'd probably write it a little bit more eloquently than I'm going to. They're not going to speak like Neanderthal men, but I'm going to say equipment. And I'm going to add the $1,000 for equipment that is reported at the government-wide level that isn't reported at the fund level. Does this thing reconcile? And now someone can pick up the financial report with this reconciliation, which has to be provided, and say, oh, I get it. You're not showing anything in fund balance because you don't report equipment at the fund level. You do report at the government-wide level, right? Okay. Now, I'm not going to hold you accountable to fully understanding the reconciliation until we get past Chapter 8, before we finish Chapter 8, because there are a host of differences between, not a host, there are a couple handfuls full of differences between modified accrual and full accrual that we have yet to understand. And we're going to have to understand all of those before we can fully appreciate the reconciliation. Okay? What I'm not going to make you do is take a worksheet that has modified accrual fund statements on one side and make you convert them into, consolidate them into, convert and consolidate them into a set of government-wide statements using full accrual accounting. That's beyond the scope of where we need to go. But that is a process that governments have to go through. Now, if I can persuade them, I'll get a CPA firm to come in here and show you how they do that. But they turned me down the last time, so I'm going to have to entice them with something else. Huh? Gummy bears? Okay. I'll try that. I'm going to try to put them on some committee somewhere and see if that works for them. Cut. Okay. Question? Okay, so key takeaway right now is what? is right here, guys. This is the key takeaway right now. This slide with all these scary looking spider looking things on here, okay, these stars on it. This is the key takeaway, which is what? Government-wide statements using what? Operational accountability. What? Full accrual accounting. Economic resources measurement focus, right? We have business type activities, we have governmental activities, don't we? Then what? Then we have our fund financial statements. We have what? Governmental funds, proprietary funds, fiduciary funds, 3 categories of funds. We have 11 funds. We have what? You've got the mnemonic, the general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, capital project fund, permanent fund. Those use what? Modified accrual accounting, current financial resources measurement focus, and fiscal accountability, right? Fiscal accountability means, are you spending the money the way you're supposed to? That's why we don't have any fixed assets. We don't have long-term items, because when we can show that we spent that current resource cash, we just show that we spent it, right? Current resources measurement focus. Okay? Then what? Then we have our proprietary funds. There are 2 of them, the Internal Service Fund and the Enterprise Fund, SEC. S is Service, E Enterprise Fund. Those use what? Full accrual accounting, economic resources measurement focus, right? Then you go over to your fiduciary fund category. We have our what? We have our custodial funds, our investment trust fund, our private purpose trust fund, our pension funds. And you just need to know the pension part of that. Okay? Those use what? Full accrual accounting, economic resources measurement focus, right? Okay, good. And so what happens? We take our governmental funds, the general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, capital project fund, permanent fund, plus the S&C KIP, the what? The internal service fund, and consolidate it into what? Into the governmental activities. We take our enterprise funds, no matter how many we have, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, whatever, and we do what? We consolidate them into business type activities. Where's KIP? Nothing. KIP is what? KIP is not reported at the government-wide level. Okay? Why? Look at the nature of these assets. Investment, private purpose. Let's just talk about pension. Do the pension assets belong to the government? No. They belong to what? The government employees, don't they? So the government doesn't own those, but they do have a what? Fiduciary responsibility over those, right? So GASB looked and said it's important that we understand how you're handling your fiduciary responsibilities, but when we get to the government-wide, where we're worried about operational accountability, how efficient, how effective are you managing your resources to run the day-to-day operations of the government, what does how well you manage a pension have to do with that? Nothing. And so they leave them out at the government-wide level. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, fiduciary funds belong to the government.
They do not belong to the government. The fiduciary funds, the assets, etc., associated with those belong to somebody outside of the government. For example, pension funds belong to what? The employees, right?
Yeah.
The employees are not the government. They're employees of the government.
Yeah.
So we put those fiduciary fund, we put that in the fiduciary fund category. These do not belong to the government. The investment trust fund. What often happens is a county will look to the cities in the county and say, hey, give us your money and we'll invest it for you. And counties do that. Hopefully it turns out okay, but if you want to look way back, there's an old story where Orange County did that, invested it in junk bonds, and that was a little bit of a problem. Okay, so let's say we can trust the county to do this correctly, but do these assets belong to the county? No, they belong to what? The cities within that county. So they account for that what? In an investment trust fund, because they're holding those for somebody else. The word trust means I'm holding this on behalf of somebody else, right? Okay? And we'll talk more about those coming up and as we move towards we don't get to this until chapter 8. Let's just go back. just so we see the chapters, we're going to spend the first few chapters dealing with our governmental funds. Then we'll come back and pick up the proprietary funds, and then the fiduciary funds are in chapter 8. Okay? Okay, good. Question? Okay, good. So when we talk about our governmental funds, we have what? Current financial resources measurement focus. And we're going to get more into this into chapter 2. We'll look at the actual financial statements. We have what? Fiscal accountability, modified accrual basis of accounting. Don't worry about this thing about revenues when they're recognized and stuff. We'll get into that more in chapter 4. Just know that I'm kind of repeating what you saw on that chart here, which is what? Fiscal accountability, modified accrual accounting, and the current financial resources measurement focus, right? For our governmental funds. Okay. Now, what's the definition of a fund? A fund is, and they say self-balancing, meaning that every fund, the debits will equal the credits within the fund. Okay, that's what they mean by self-balancing. But it is a set of money that is set aside to carry on a specific purpose. Now, you look at all that and you're like, okay, what does that mean? So this is where I get to test my artistic ability. Ready? What is this? Wow. See, I'm an artistic genius, okay? That's a road, right? Huh? A belt? No, it's a road. But I know there's someone that you can talk to that can help you with that. Okay? All right. So we're sitting here and we have this road, okay? And then what? Then let's say the legislature says that we're going to impose a gas tax. And the gas tax will be used for road improvement. Makes sense, doesn't it? Cars use gas, at least some do. Cars use gas. Cars drive on the road, right? Okay. So what happens? They impose a tax on gasoline, and they use that for road improvement. And they say, hey, you're going to spend $1 million on road improvement, right? Okay. So what happens? We set up a fund. That fund is called a special revenue fund, which is one of my governmental funds. That's the R in GRASP. We'd have a special revenue fund, SRF, a special revenue fund, in which we would account for the spending of money on road improvement. So in the special revenue fund, if we spent some cash on road improvement, say buying a steamroller, what journal entry would we make?
Expenditure.
Debit what?
Expenditure.
Good. Debit expenditure. Very good. For $1,000. I don't think you get a steamroller for $1,000. Whatever. Credit cash, right? That's the journal entry we make in the special revenue fund, because that fund was set up to what? Make sure that we spent the gas tax on road improvement. Did we spend the gas tax on road improvement? So we make that entry in the special revenue fund. That's what these funds are doing. They're making sure that you're spending the money for the intended purpose. And they use modified accrual accounting, right? At least the governmental funds do. Okay, good. Now we also have our proprietary funds, and our proprietary funds use what? Full accrual accounting, economic resources measurement focus. Same thing with the fiduciary funds, right? Okay, good. Now let's go ahead. We've already seen this slide. We've already seen this slide. Well, why is it here? I don't know. I already did that. Note to self, take those out. Huh? This all right here? Well, this is a good time for a break then, right? Because now you have to come back to understand what the hell is that, okay? All right, so let's go ahead, guys, and let's take, we'll take 15 minutes, okay? And we'll come back and I'll explain this silly drawing to you.
Looks like a mama and her kid.
It is, very good. Yeah, don't go there. We're going to go ahead and resume here with this notion of the reporting entity. Okay, guys, so up here. Okay, so what we're going to look at now is this. Oops. 1 second. Somehow it's on automatic. Okay. All right. So we're going to start talking about the. Stop. Okay. We're going to start talking about the financial reporting entity here. Okay. Now, what happens? We say that generally the financial reporting entity consists of the primary government and organizations to which the primary government is financially accountable, and we call those component units. So you're all curious about this highly technical drawing here, okay? The big person, if you want to call that a person in this drawing, is the primary government. They're like the parent here, right? Okay? This little person is like the child, that is the component unit. Good. Are parents financially accountable for their children? Try having one sometime and telling the government you're not financially accountable for you, and they'll have a different story for you. Okay? So what happens? The primary government is financially accountable for the component unit, right? Okay? Now, what we're going to see is that the primary government, and this is that same slide we were looking at before for the government-wide statement of net position, the primary government, which shows their business and governmental and business type activities, will also have to show their children, won't they? These component units. And it doesn't matter how many children they have, they'll roll them up and they will report them in this component unit column under the method called discrete presentation. Now there's also a method called blended presentation, which is the exception method, and I'll talk to you about that here in a couple seconds, okay? But we have what? We have the primary government. Primary government is financially accountable to its children, what? The component units, right? Okay? Now, if you are a government entity, I'm telling you now, look at me guys, you are either a primary government or a component unit. If you are a government entity, you are either what? A primary government or a component unit. Right? Okay. So, if you are a government entity, you are either a if you are a government entity, you are either a primary government or a component unit. Please focus on the lecture. Whatever else is going on in that computer screen needs to stop when the class starts back. Okay, so if you are what? If you are a government entity, you are one or the other. You're either the parent, the primary government, or you are what? The child, the component unit. You're one or the other, aren't you? Okay? Okay, good. Now, what happens? That means I need to know if I'm a primary government or not, because if I am, I'm going to prepare what? The business type activity, the governmental activities, then I'm going to have to take my children and put them in a column there, right? So how do I know if I'm a primary government? And I am a primary government automatically if I'm a state. Any state is automatically a primary government. So is the state of California a primary government? Is the state of Mississippi a primary government? Is the state of Rhode Island a primary government? Yes. All states are automatically primary governments. Okay, good. General purpose local governments like cities and counties. We call them general purpose. Why? Because they have general purposes. For example, a city has what? Public safety, but they also may have recreation. They also may have cultural activities that they get involved in. So they have several different purposes, right? Okay, so a general purpose government like a city or a county is automatically a primary government. Is the city of San Jose a primary government? Yes, it is. It's a city, right? Is Santa Clara County a primary government? Is the city of San Francisco a primary government? Is the county of San Francisco a primary government? Is Hayward a primary government? Believe it or not, it is. Okay? Any city, any county, any general purpose government is a primary government. Now remember, we said last time that you have some governments that are special purpose governments. That means they have a special, singular purpose. They don't have a bunch of different purposes. They just have one purpose. Example, school district. What's the purpose of a school district? I believe the children are the future. All of that kind of stuff that they sing about in the songs, okay? And I won't sing too much, don't worry, okay? So what happens? We have what? We have special purpose government that have a singular purpose like a school district, and they have to check themselves to see if they're primary government. So they're not automatic like the states, like the general purpose. They have to check themselves, and I'm emphasizing self because you can see the mnemonic here in the bubbles, which is what? They have to have a separately elected governing body. They have to be legally separate and fiscally independent. So they have to meet all three of these criteria. I know it looks like four because it's spelling self, but it's three criteria. Separately elected governing body. They have to be what? Legally separate and fiscally independent. They have to meet all three of those criteria, and if they meet all three of those criteria, then they are a primary government. What happens if they don't meet all three of those criteria? They are not a primary government, therefore they are a child, they are a what? Component unit. Because you're one or the other, aren't you? And so then they would be reported on the what? Financial statements of the primary government. With me so far? Now, when we talk about, and here's how they would be reported, in that column using discrete presentation is what that column is showing you. Okay? So let's just come over and let's look here. How should we present component units? We will either use blended or discrete. Let's look at discrete first. Discrete says what? A separate or columnar presentation, and they tell us that most component units will be displayed using what? Discrete presentation. So that's the default way of showing your children, showing your component units, right? In a separate column like that. That's the default way. So unless you see the reasons to use blended, you assume what? Discrete, don't you? Okay, now what does blended do? Blended mixes up the information of the component unit with the primary government. So it's kind of like a milkshake. Okay, so I don't really show you. I say, here's a milkshake. And I don't say, now here's the milk, here's the ice cream. It's just a milkshake. It's blended, isn't it? Now everybody's going like, milkshake. Okay. All right. So we have what? We have blended, meaning they're mixed up. I can't show you blended over here because it's all mixed in, isn't it? Okay. Now, when should you use blended? You should use blended if the board of the component unit is substantially the same as that of the primary government, or the component unit serves the primary exclusively, or the component unit is not legally separate. Okay, now any one of those. Now sometimes students will say, well, wait a minute, the school district serves the government. No, it doesn't. The school district serves who? The little children. Doesn't it serve the little children? It doesn't serve the government. It serves the children, doesn't it? Okay, so what happens? Let's say I give you a question like this. The Hayward School District has a separately elected governing body, is legally separate from the city of Hayward, and each year must submit its budget to the Hayward City Council for approval. Do we have a primary government? Let's see, it has a separately elected governing board. It's legally separate, but it is not fiscally independent if it has to submit its budget to the city council for approval. Therefore, it is what? A component unit, isn't it? Right? Now, should it be included using blended or discrete? Why blended? I said it has a separately elected board, so it's not a board that's substantially the same. I said that what? It is legally separate, didn't I? So it's not legally separate. It is legally separate, right? And who does it serve? It serves the children. It doesn't serve the government. So it should use what? Discrete, right? Once you've decided that you have a component unit, you go through this list of criteria to determine if you should use blended or not, right? City of Hayward has a school district. School district has a separately elected governing board. Let me repeat what I said. It is legally separate, and each year it must submit its budget to the City of Hayward for approval. First question, is it a primary government component unit? Answer? Well, component unit is the answer. That was not a yes or no question. That was, is it a primary government component unit? The answer is component unit. Should I use blended or discrete? To decide if I should use blended, I go through these criteria. Well, I don't understand why this is hard. Do we have the same board? No, I said it was a separately elected board, so the board is not substantially the same. It's a separately elected board. The board is not substantially the same. I said it's not legally separate. I said that. I said it is legally separate. I said it's legally separate, didn't I? So that means that it's not legally separate. It is legally separate, so it didn't meet that criteria. And it doesn't serve the city of Hayward. It serves who? The children. So it met none of the criteria for blended, so we use what? Discrete. Okay? Question? Okay, good. Now you come over, and I don't know why this is here, other than I must love this slide, because that's like the 5th time you've seen it, okay? For no reason, okay? So let's just take a look at a question. Salt City School District has a separately elected governing board that administers the public school system. The district's budget is subject to the approval of the city council. The district's financial activities should be reported in the city's financial statements by, first of all, do we have a component unit? Yes, we do, because what? It has to submit its budget, so it's not fiscally independent, right? Okay. Now, we want to see if we met the criteria for blended, and we say it's separately elected, so the boards are not substantially the same. And in a question like this, you can't assume, but what? That it is not legally separate, and you can't assume, well, you know that it doesn't serve the government because it's a school district, it serves the children, doesn't it? So you can't assume not legally separate if the question doesn't talk about its legal separability or not, right? You can't just say, well, they must be legally separate. So the answer is what? Discrete. Okay? Question? Okay, good. Let's talk about the comprehensive annual financial report of a government. Okay? And what happens? Do corporations prepare annual reports? They have to prepare an annual report, don't they? And they do what? They take important financial information like their MD&A, their financial statements, etc., and they do what with it? Where do they put it? They put it in the back of the annual report, don't they? Because they want you to look at all these glossy pictures of them sitting in boardrooms like this. Right, and they take all those pictures, and then everybody goes, woo, look at those smart people. Who cares what the financial statements say? I want to invest in them because they look really smart. Right? Okay, so they put all of this glossy stuff in front, and then in the back they put what? The financial information that they have to prepare to please the SEC, etc., right? Isn't that what they do? Okay? Governments do the same thing. They take the financial reporting package that we've talked about, which is what? The MD&A, the basic financial statements and required supplemental information other than MD&A, and they stick it in the middle of this thing. So they don't put it in the back, but okay. They stick it in the middle, and then they sandwich it around a bunch of other stuff. An introduction section and a statistical section. Okay, now, all governments do this. And they do this because they want to receive an award from the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA. And what the GFOA will do is look at the comprehensive annual financial report of a government and see if they've met their requirements. And if they do, they give them an award. So the comprehensive annual financial report is not required. It's something that all governments do because they want that award. They want the GFOA award. Now, sometimes I'll get students say, you know, I can always tell the students with a bad attitude because they say, well, who cares? We just won't get the award then. And I'm like, yeah, okay, try that sometime. Okay, try to go in as the chief financial person in a government that has been receiving the GFOA award for the last 40 years. And then you're going to come in and say, no, we're not getting that award anymore. Okay, it'll probably be written in your executive contract that you will continue to get this thing, right? Okay, so what happens? The comprehensive annual financial report is not required, but almost every government prepares it, and if they want that GFOA award, they will follow this format, which will have an introduction section, a financial section, and we know the financial section well now. It's going to be what? First the MD&A, then the basic financial statements, and the required supplemental information other than MD&A, which all governments have to prepare, right? Okay, and they pick that up and stick it into the middle of the CAFR. Just like all corporations have to prepare their financial reports that they stick at the back of the annual report that they don't have to prepare, but they all do because they want you to, see pictures of them going, right? And you invest in the stock, okay? And then they have to put that statistical section at the end, okay? So they're going to pick up what's required and stick it in the middle, okay? So let's just take a look. We have our introductory section. It gives us a title page, table of contents, letter of transmittal. Others is desired by management, and what ends up happening is they give you a bunch of pictures of politicians in there. Here's the mayor, here's the city council. Have you ever met a politician that doesn't want their picture taken? Well, if they're coming out of an unscrupulous place at 12 o'clock at night, they probably want their picture taken, but usually they do want their picture taken of them, attending the school district party or whatever, right? Okay? All right, so that stuff can be included in there as well. Title page, content page, letter of transmittal. Now you come over and we will have the financial section, which does have the auditor's report. State and local governments are audited. They have to get an opinion on their financial statements. Have you taken the auditing class? Okay, so they got to get that opinion on their financial statements. The big entity that does the city, the big CPA firm that does the city of San Jose is called MGO. And don't ask me what MGO stand for because I can't pronounce it. MGO audits the city of San Jose. They audit city and county of San Francisco, city and county of Los Angeles. They're huge. Who's going to meet the firms? Nobody? Okay, well, you got to be invited here, right, at San Jose State. San Francisco State, you can just walk in. You can just be like, is this where Meet the Firms is? And they'll let you in, okay? Here, they don't want that. They want you to, like, you know, be invited and stuff. But if you have been invited, you should go, okay? I'm telling you, here's what's not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen like you're sleeping at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning because you've been out with your friends all night the night before, and all of a sudden you're going to hear at the door, and you say, I hope my mom answers. You hear your mom say, yes, and the person says, I'm here to speak to your daughter, your son, because we need them. They need a firecracker like them in our business. Can I speak to your son, your daughter? I mean, that's not going to happen, okay? You're going to have to be what? Go looking for the opportunity, and Meet the Firms is an excellent place to do that. So if you've got the opportunity to go, you should. Now they have Meet the Corporations too, which is like, I guess, for those who, are like stray dogs that don't get invited, that want to wander in somewhere to talk to the firms. But there's government agencies there, that kind of stuff. So you should be going to, if not both of those, at least one of those. And the other one, you don't need an invitation. Okay? But what's my point? MGO may very well be at that Meet the Firms, I don't know. And if they are, you go up and you say, oh, well, in my governmental accounting class, they were talking about MGO. Well, I really like the work you do. I'm taking a governmental accounting class. Okay? All right. So these auditors audit the financial statements. That's the audit report. But I've highlighted the items that we've already understood as part of the financial reporting package, which is what? The MD&A, the basic financial statements, which are the government-wide statements, the fund financial statements and the notes there too, and what? And the required supplemental information other than MD&A. So they pick up that model and stick it into the middle of the comprehensive annual financial report, right? Then they have that third section, and okay, here's the picture in case you forgot. Okay. How did I do this? Oh, I know. So now I'm going to break off and talk about each one of those pieces a little bit, okay? So the MD&A is a narrative document. It describes why we spent only $800,000 on road improvement instead of $1 million because we had to spend $200,000 on public safety or something. Remember that whole story? Now, my big question is, doesn't this guy have this thing turned the wrong way? Okay, I think that she should be speaking into the small end, and he should be listening through the big end. Isn't that how the thing like that works?
Well, the guy would be deaf if it were turned the other way.
Okay. Generally, if you want someone to hear you, you speak out this small end, and unless she's whispering to him. But I'm thinking, we're announcing here, so this thing's turned the wrong way. Okay, but anyway, sorry guys, I obviously stare way too long at the pictures. Okay, so what happens? We sit here and we have a narrative, which is the MD&A, like I've described. Okay, now we also have the statistical section. That's that last section, and the statistical section is insane. The statistical section goes on and on and on about different financial aspects of this government's operations. For example, here's our revenue over the last 10 years selling shirts. Here's our tax revenue over the last 10 years from the sale of shirts. Here's our tax revenue over the last 20 years from property the color blue. Here's our revenue, our tax revenue, our property tax revenue from houses that are painted green. Okay, obviously it is not to that level of detail, but it is detailed information that can extend out over 10, 15 years. Now you say, well, why would they bother with that? Well, let's say you're thinking of having your business in the city of San Jose and your business is selling blue shirts. You may very well be interested in what the tax base has been in the sale of shirts over the last 10 years or something, right? Okay, so there's various things that have to be included, and we have to follow what the GFOA wants, right? Okay, all right, so you've got 3 sections, and the key thing, guys, is just remember the sections. If you remember these sections, it triggers what would potentially, in your mind, what potentially be in these sections. Introductories, all kinds of fancy pictures and stuff. You know the financial section well, and then what? The statistical section is just volumes and volumes of data that goes on about years and years of different transactions, etc. Okay, so let's just go ahead and let's take a look at this question. Okay, and we say, which of the following statements about the statistical section of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report is true? Now, they could say there's 3 lies up here. Which one is true? Which one is true?
It's the C. The statistical section is not part of the basic financial.
That's right. Very good. It is not. It's its own section, right?
Yes.
The basic financial statements are part of the financial section, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Very good. Beautiful. Let's give this man a hand. They never give me a hand like I never get claps for like that. I always have the situation during an exam, somebody sneezes and everybody goes, bless you. I could sit up here and sneeze for 15 minutes. Nobody would say, bless you. They'd say, oh, well, can you hurry up and finish sneezing so we can get out of here on time? Now, don't try that sneezing trick because I know that if someone goes, hit you, that means that the answer is B. So don't try that one on me. Okay? Okay. Okay, guys, so calm down now. Wasn't that funny? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at the quiz now for Chapter 1. So this is how the class will go. We'll do the slides, we'll do the quiz, we do them together, right? If you're here, you get credit for the homework, you get credit for the quiz, right? If you're not here, you don't get credit for either of those. So you need to keep up your attendance to make sure you're getting those points for quiz and homework, right? Okay, now you say, well, how do you know if we're here or not? Well, I know everyone who is here today because everybody wanted an ad code and didn't want to get dropped, okay? Going forward, I'll have a sign-in sheet that you'll have to sign in so I can then look back, make sure you were here, and give you the points for the homework and the quiz. Okay? All right, ready? Okay, let's take a look. It's a little confusing because you keep seeing Chapter 1, Chapter 1. These are all Chapter 1 questions. I used to dump all of the questions in one big file, and I would label which chapter they came from, and then I thought, well, why don't I just take them out into separate files, and then we don't have to label which chapter they came from, and so, but I didn't feel like deleting the chapter references. So now they're all contained. So all of these in this file are Chapter 1 questions, what I'm trying to say, not very well. Okay? All right, so the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is the primary standard setting body for all governments. No, federal government has FASAB. No. GASB sets the accounting standards for state and local governments, the answer to this question. But the federal government is a government, and they have the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board, don't they? The FASAB that sets standards for them. So it's what? State and local governments. It's not all governments, and it's not not-for-profit. Not-for-profit is what? Financial Accounting Standards Board, we said last time. The FASB sets the standards for not-for-profits in the private sector, right? And then we have all state and local governments and all not-for-profits. No, that's FASB, right?
Yeah.
So the answer is B here. Okay. Which of the following is the most authoritative source of accounting standards for cities and counties? Are those state and local governments? Are cities and counties state and local governments? Well, they're not state, but they're local governments, aren't they? Okay, so that's the GASB?
Yes.
All state and local governments? Okay, good. Which of the following has the highest level of authority for government for a government in the governmental gap hierarchy? It is what? GASB, right? They set the standards. It's GASB. Now you're looking at this, and let's look at number 4. Which of the following organizations issue standards that are authoritative for state and local governments? It's who? GASB. And you're like, okay, I get it, GASB. You're my daddy. I got it, okay? Now what happens? We're sitting here, and we're looking at Chapter 1 questions, right? Therefore, you saw this point about the GASB repeated several times. On your exam, you might get one question that asks you who sets the standards, right? Okay, we're in Chapter 1 questions right now, so you're going to see more of the representation of things than you would actually see on the exam. Okay, the body that has been established to recommend accounting and financial reporting standards to the federal government is the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board, FASAB. And as I said in our lecture for Chapter 1 earlier last time, that's probably the only question I will ask you about federal government accounting in here, is who sets the standards. It's the FASAB, not the GASB. Okay, number 6. The Financial Accounting Standards Board has a responsibility for setting the financial reporting standards for what? Not-for-profit organizations and what? Private for-profit entities. You know that for a long time. Private sector entities, right? Whether for-profit or not-for-profit. Stop me if there's a question. Which of the following is not an objective of financial reporting by the state and local governments? Okay, let's look. One thing I want to say real quick, guys, because sometimes students say, well, Professor, can you give us a file with unhighlighted ones? And my answer is no, because I've got better things to do. I mean, how am I supposed to get to the bar on time if I'm sitting here unhighlighting these things for you guys? Okay, so all you do is you sit here and you go no color, and that got rid of the highlights up there. The highlights are gone. Okay, and then you say, okay, but what about the underlines? Well, for that, it's a little more tedious. You go ahead and you use that little paintbrush. See the little paintbrush? And then you come over and you paint. Oh, well, that's messing that up because now that changed it. That's why I said it's annoying and a little tedious because sometimes the file won't let you work with it as well. You guys are better at this than I am.
You do the same thing with your bold and underline.
Well, I like the paintbrush. Okay. And this is when I sit there and I start screaming at the computer. My poor dad, who's 89, goes, "What's wrong?" I'm yelling at the computer. Why? Why would you yell at a computer? Okay. However you do it, you can unhighlight them, right? Now, sometimes students will unhighlight everything and then they'll save it, and I'll get a panic message. Professor, I've lost it. I don't know what the answers are. Can you send me the file again with the answers? And I'll say, no, because it's posted on Canvas that way. Just get it back off of Canvas. Okay. Okay, number, 7? Which of the following is not an objective of financial reporting by state and local governments? Okay. D, to assist in determining compliance with finance-related laws, rules, regulations. Isn't that what we said is the objective? Compliance with laws and regulations. Spend $1 million on what? On road improvement because the law said we were supposed to. C, to assist financial report users in comparing actual results with the budget. We've been talking about that. Hey, how come you had to spend less on road improvement versus public safety, whatever, right? Okay. B, to assist users in assessing financial condition and results of operations. Financial condition is the balance sheet. Results of operation is the income statement, which we said are what are prepared, right? The government-wide level, anyway, so far we've said that. Okay. To assist users in assessing the adequacy of systems of internal controls, No. There is no report talking about internal control in state and local governments. Do you have that in corporations? Do you have that in corporations? Yes, you do. Under Sarbanes-Oxley Act, management has to provide a report assessing their internal control, and then auditors have to come in behind and see if they agree with the assertions in that management report, don't they? So the auditors give an opinion on the internal control, on management's assessment of their internal controls. So why don't they do that in state and local government? Huh? What? Why don't they do that in state and local government? Huh? What? My poor dad, his hearing is not as good. And every time I say something, he goes, huh? And I'm like, so now I say something to him, and then I say to myself, huh? I know he's going to say, huh, every time. And it's frustrating because I've used up my repetition gene by the time I get home. So why don't we have this for state and local government? Well, FASB is not the one that requires that corporations issue a report on internal control. That's for public companies under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, right? Who's Sarbanes, who's Oxley? Sarbanes was a senator, Oxley was the House member. Sarbanes was a Democrat, Oxley was a Republican. And after things like Enron and WorldCom and that, Congress finally did some things that my office, the GAO, had been telling them they should do for years. And one of the things that they did was they required this report on internal control. The idea being if the auditors are in there looking at internal controls, why shouldn't they be a report that's generated that gives some sort of assurance as to the adequacy of the internal controls or the lack thereof, right? Okay. Why don't state and local governments have such a requirement? Okay, you don't know? I'm
guessing there's no shareholders to make comfortable with all the controls.
There's no shareholders to make comfortable with the internal controls. Who did we say last time the GASB is called out as the users of financial reports? They've said the citizens, even though I said, yeah, great. So now they gave us a homework assignment. I mean, what? We're not going to read these things unless we take a class on, state and local government. Otherwise, we're not going to look at these things, right? Okay. And so what happened on state and local government accounting? So citizens, do you want your tax dollars spent fraud, waste, and abuse? No. So there could be an issue there that we'd like there to be adequate controls over our tax dollars, right? So why don't they have to generate this report? And if you don't know, you're with me. My answer is the same. I don't know. This is ridiculous. They should have to do this. How is it okay that the government, although be it the federal government, points to corporations and say, you have to provide this internal control report, and then they step back and say, but we don't have to because we're scared that if we have to start to prepare these reports, everybody's going to know how sloppy our internal controls are. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. There is no reason why an initiative cannot be taken up that would require state and local governments to prepare a report like you see in corporations. Yes, sir. Well, that's a whole nother issue. Let me say two things about federal government. Number one, federal government does not require this report either. Now, agencies can elect to have this report done, but it is not required. So that's one thing. So how dare the federal government not have that report automatic when they're the ones that are telling the corporations to do it, right? We're talking about state and local here, but the same argument applies to the federal level. Now, what's your name, sir? Paul. What Paul is talking about is the federal government prepares a set of consolidated financial statements every year that is audited by my office, the Government Accountability. It's not my office anymore, but GAO will always be somewhere in my mind, my heart. For example, when I wake up in the middle of the night going, ah! Okay, that's when I know I had a dream about GAO, okay? So what happens? I used to have a job cleaning surgery rooms. And so if you got there during certain days, there'd be like 8 very bloody surgery rooms waiting for you that you had to hurry up and clean up before they bloodied 8 more that you had to clean. So it was like kind of a bad job, right? So I used to say, well, at least at the hospital, they used to give us gloves to clean up this kind of stuff. At GAO, they just say, go get it, go do it. Ugh. Okay, anyway. All right. So what are we talking about? So the GAO used to audit the tries to audit the financial reports of the federal government. Now, here's the problem. If you have a subsidiary that you can't get a clean opinion on, then that lack of a clean opinion in the subsidiary generally boils up into and it's a disclaimer of opinion that the GAO gives on the financial statements of the federal government, boils up into a disclaimer of opinion on the financial statements of the federal government, boils up into a disclaimer on the consolidation. Because I have a subsidiary that I can't get a clean opinion on, let's say I get a disclaimer, that boils up into a disclaimer on the consolidated. Now, the federal government has 32 agencies that constitute the consolidation, and one of them is Department of Defense. And nobody can audit Department of Defense, so Department of Defense gets a disclaimer. That bubbles up into a disclaimer on the consolidated statements. Now, why can nobody audit Department of Defense? National security? That's what your patriotic heart wants to believe, okay? The answer is that the Department of Defense is not good at keeping track of its assets. It's good at blowing up the assets of other people, but it's not good at keeping track of the assets that it used to blow up the assets of other people. And so what happens? And you can't get a clean opinion. They can't keep track of their assets. There's a disclaimer on Department of Defense. That disclaimer bubbles up into disclaimer into the consolidated financial statements of the federal government. That's one problem. And Department of Defense should fix that. Okay, it's not okay that they get that disclaimer. That disclaimer is affecting the whole consolidated financial reports of the federal government. The other problem that has very little to do with Department of Defense, frankly, is that the balance sheet doesn't balance. Every year, the federal government ends up with a $3.4 trillion plug, thereabouts, $3.4 trillion plug to make the balance sheet balance. Why doesn't the balance sheet balance? And don't say because of the debt, because you just keep track of your debt and your balance sheet still balances. No, that has nothing to do with it. A company can spend more than it takes in, and they can still prepare a balance sheet's balance, guys. If you have debits and credits and you adhere to that, then your balance sheet balances. And if it doesn't, you screwed one or the other of them up, the debit or the credit. Balance sheets balance. Unless you have a wacko system of consolidation in which you have one system or 32 systems that prepare the individual agency statements, and then you have another system that prepares the consolidated, and then you try to make the two systems reconcile to each other, and guess what? They do not. They can't get them to reconcile. So the balance sheet doesn't balance. So they have to end up plugging $3.4 trillion or so to make the balance sheet balance. And as the auditor, the GAO has a little problem with a $3.4 trillion plug on the financial statements to make it balance. So they have their consolidation system is all screwed up. Hang on. Government, state and local governments could not live with a disclaimer of opinion on their financial statements. That would be a disaster because they have to what? They have to sell their securities in the market, and their financial reports are evaluated for that purposes. Federal government runs a loss every year, and still people line up to buy their securities. I guess because it's the biggest, baddest country it's ever been. If you don't buy our securities, we'll come and blow you up and take your stuff. Okay, but you're going to give us your money one way or the other. I don't know how that all works, but somehow they can still sell their securities. State and local governments could not live with that. So what they do is they prepare the statements at the fund level, and then they go through a proper process in which they do what? Eliminate intergovernmental activities and convert the what? The modified accrual fund financial statements to full accrual so that they know the two sets of statements will reconcile. They don't sit there and have two sets of books in a system and then hope that somehow they merge together at the end. So that's probably the biggest reason that I'm not sure the federal government will ever solve that problem until it does it properly, which is have what? Every agency on the same system and have that roll up into a system, the same system that then generates a consolidation. But I don't know that that'll ever happen. What was your question, sir? Okay. In other words, we want to go. Okay. All right. Okay, good. But those are good thoughts. Okay. So I don't know why, but they don't have that report. Okay. All right, good. Let's take a look at number 8. Comprehensive annual financial report is prepared in conformity to the GASB. It is not. It is not GASB recommendations. Whoever wrote this question was smoking. It's GFOA, okay, whoever wrote this question. And, you know, I get annoyed with these textbooks because I'll send them a note saying, hey, guys, you're a little off track on this question. And then they always say, well, I'm not the one that prepared that question. Well, I don't care if you're the one that prepared it. You're the one that I'm supposed to send problems to. You should fix this, okay? So GFOA is the entity that talks what the CAFR should look like, and the 3 sections that the GFOA has recommended or requires in order if you want get that GFOA award is the introductory section, the financial section, and the statistical section, right? Okay, good. Which of the following should be included in the financial section of the comprehensive annual financial report? It is what? The MD&A, the basic financial statements in the notes there too, and required supplemental information other than MD&A, which is what this second question, this second choice is. Well, the basic financial statements, including the notes. Transmittal letters in the introduction section. Tables, charts is what? In the statistical section. You know, description of the government. That's in the MD&A, so there's a little bit of a problem with this question, isn't there? I mean, D really should not be there. D should not be there because the description of the government shows up in the MD&A. They'll say, hello, I'm the city of Hayward, and here are my component units, my children, da-da-da, etc. And that shows up in the MD&A. So this is another question where there's a problem. Now, sometimes, guys, I pick a question, even for your exam, and I'm looking, and I'm not reading each choice saying, could there be a problem? I'm looking at the question going, okay, let me get this thing out of my face. I got to get this test. Okay, I see answer B. Yeah, that makes sense. Paste it, put it on the test. Okay, so if something happens and we get a funky question like that on the exam, I will reward the points back to you. These test banks are not perfect. These test banks are often put together by graduate students who had a serious hangover and got it done, you know, the night before it was due or something. Okay, so... Okay, they are not the end all. Number 10, on what should the government-wide financial statements report? And we have what? We have the balance sheet and we have the income statement, don't we? We call that balance sheet the statement of net position. The net position is like the retained earnings. And what? And we have an operating statement, the income statement, so the results of operations. Fiscal accountability is what? That's the governmental fund statements, isn't it? That's our fund statements. Cost of government services, that's really going to be reported in the what? In the government fund statements. Okay, and the budgetary compliance is what we assess budgetary compliance when we're dealing with our fund financial statements. On what should the fund financial statements, governmental fund financial statements, that's what? Fiscal accountability, right? Question, guys? Guys, are you going to hold your own class back there? Is that going to be the deal? Is there a question? Okay. Question? Yes, sir.
So we're basically supposed to like put it to some type of fund and redo it ourselves, this quiz?
You can if you want to for study purposes. You don't have to turn anything into me. You got the points for the quiz because you're here.
Oh, okay.
And you participated. Okay, you get the points for the quiz if you're here. It's just like a quiz. Think about it this way. It's just like a regular quiz. If you aren't there the day they give you the quiz, can you get the points for the quiz? No. So if you're not here the day we cover the quiz, you can't get the points for the quiz. If you're here the day that we cover the quiz, then that's like taking the quiz as far as I'm concerned, and you get all the points for it. Same thing for the homework. Question? Okay, guys, that's enough for tonight. Then we'll hit chapter 2. I will see you on Wednesday. Make sure you're getting into iLearn and downloading the slides and stuff if you just got an ad code tonight. All right, guys.